I'm not going to ask what I normally ask. Joan, it is wonderful to be able to welcome you to Dallas.
Thank you, Bobbie. Thank you.
We've had many interviews all over the place.
We have. We have.
And to be able to welcome you to Dallas is a great thing.
Thanks, Bobbie. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Well, I just thank you for coming and taking time out of your busy schedule with your daughter's summer activities and all. But anyway, let's get on to the movie, Yes. Mm-hmm. I am saying yes to yes.
Yes, good.
Wonderful film. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Bobbie.
And your performance is, well, you know, we come to expect the best from Joan Allen. So every time you have to keep topping yourself, what kind of pressure is that?
I know, no pressure, none.
This film has political significance, and certainly it has current significance. But what was Sally Potter's inspiration for this film?
Well, oddly enough, I don't know how she managed to do it. She started writing it on September 12th of 2001, immediately the day after the towers came down. And she started writing it as a short film. Basically, it was the argument scene in the parking garage between this couple, a Western woman and Middle Eastern man, who'd been lovers, and that was the impetus for her to begin her writing. She shot it as a short film, and then she, based on feeling that it would work, she expanded the story and created the feature-length film. And so that was her initial inspiration.
And when did you come into the project?
I came into the project, she had shot the short film with Simone Abkarian, a wonderful actor who's my co-star in the film. And I probably came in about a year later than after she had written and expanded it, and then she was looking for the character of She, and Sally was aware of my work and came to New York to meet me.
So Sally is a New Yorker, and
she lives in London actually.
But was she in New York at the time of 9/11?
She was not. Oh. She was actually, I believe, she was on vacation somewhere, camping on some island off the coast of England somewhere. But she just knew immediately that it would. She wanted to write something that was therapeutic already, you know, and hopeful.
How did she arrive at the title Yes?
Well, I think it's sort of a combination of things. I know she was partially influenced by Molly Bloom's speech in Ulysses, I believe, where apparently Molly Bloom goes. I can't quote everybody, but there's a sequence where she goes yes and yes and yes, and that was something that influenced her. And I think she felt that there was a lot of no floating around and going to be floating around after 9/11, and she, because of I think her belief system and her attitudes about life and responsibility to being on this planet. She wanted to create something that was the opposite of no, or create a piece that emphasized the opposite of no. And she thinks it's actually the most beautiful word in the English language, so that was what inspired her.
Your character is in a failing marriage, unhappy marriage, and she meets this Lebanese man, and they fall in love. Now, first of all, how did Sally know about the actor, and how do you pronounce his name, by the way?
Well, Simone Abkarian is his name, and she had worked with him in a previous film of hers called The Man Who Cried. She had cast him in that, and unfortunately, for storytelling purposes, he ended up on the cutting room floor. But nothing to do with his work, because she just absolutely loved him. And so she remembered him when she was starting to work on Yes. And so she spent a lot of time with Simone and talked about his own experiences. He's actually Armenian. And he was, I believe, born in France, but spent a lot of his youth, about 10 years of his youth, in Beirut. So he took Sally to Beirut. They went to many different locations there. The film actually couldn't shoot in Beirut. We had to, Havana doubled as Beirut at the end of the day. But that was her connection with him.
The political significance, it seems to me, is that here's a Western woman falling in love with a Middle Eastern man, and the political significance seems to be one of trying for the East and the West to get along together.
Yes.
But is there more to it than that, Joan?
Well, I think the film is about a lot of things. I do think that is one of the issues, and I think that that sometimes appearances we don't really know. We might think we know what's going on, or what that culture believes, or they might think they know what our culture believes, and really there can be a lot of misconception, a lot of misunderstanding. You know, at one point Simone's character says to one of the kitchen workers, "Do you think we're all the same from over there?" And there's one point when I say to him, when he says, "You Western people feel this way," and I go, "I'm an individual," you know. And so I think it deals with those issues. It deals a lot with, I think, the idea of God and what is God, and my character's a scientist, and she happens to feel that probably science is her religion, and is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? You know, Sally is so non-judgmental about all the different characters and about all their different perspectives, and that's what I think people are really responding to in the film. It sends out a very therapeutic message that there is a room for all, multiple beliefs, and not one belief sort of supersedes another.
Some of the dialogue has rhyme to it.
Yes, it is.
Now, when you first read that, what was your reaction?
I was a little intimidated. I was working on The Notebook at the time, so I was playing this tough, sort of wealthy Southern woman, and so then I get this screenplay to read, and once I saw Sally's name attached, I was thrilled to read it because I'm a huge admirer of her work. But I was in Charleston, South Carolina. I was reading this, like going, "Oh my God, I've never done I've done a lot of theater, but I've never done Shakespeare." And I was like, I'm not really sure. I'm very curious, but this makes me a little nervous. But as soon as I met Sally and talked with her about she didn't want it to be stilted. She didn't want it to be pedantic. She wanted it to be very conversational. And she said, "Think more Eminem than Shakespeare." She was very inspired by all the rap poets and all these poetry jams that are kind of happening around the country. And so that kind of took me down as well. And then we had 3 weeks of rehearsal, so we also had time to work with the language.
Did you ever ask her, or did she ever say, how that served and in what way it served the script?
We did talk about that. People have asked her, first of all, why did you write it in verse? And she said, I just came out that way. She's had she's done multiple things in her life. One thing, she's been a musician and she's been a lyricist, and so that was one of the things that she just said, that's the way it came out. And I think she felt like some of the concepts that are presented in the film are rather large, East, West, man, woman, God, no God, science, and she felt that in an odd way the poetry supported those large ideas and made it very listenable to an audience without sort of hammering them over the head. So I think that's kind of what she was thinking.
I have just one question from your past films, because we're really here to talk about Yes.
Yeah.
But of course, your performance as Pat Nixon is now a legendary performance. If you were making that film today, would you do anything different?
I'm sure there would be subtle things that I would. I haven't seen the film in actually a long time. It would be interesting for me to see it again. I'm sure there would be things that I would probably change, maybe even subtle things, because I think as an actor, you're always kind of evolving and changing as a person. Joan is a different person now than I was when I made Nixon, and so I think. And hopefully my acting has developed during that period of time so that I might, give a more refined, subtler performance. But I'm really moved that people continue to talk about that film and that performance, and it's very memorable to a lot of people.
Well, it's a film that I can watch time and time again.
Yes.
And because of the, well, the nature of it, of course, but just watching your performance and Anthony Hopkins, that's just acting at its very best.
Anthony, yes, he's phenomenal, yes.
Joan, again, thank you for coming to Dallas and giving
you.
us a chance to talk with you about Yes.
Thank you, Bobbie.
Excuse me, should she angle, and if you'll just start to answer and then I'll wave you off.
Okay, Bobbie.
Why do you think Sally Potter named the movie Yes?
Well, there were a couple of reasons that she discussed with us. And
That's fine, okay. What is the political significance to this beyond East and West?
Well, I think that the East and West issue is really very important in the film, but I also feel that there are a lot of other issues there, issues of the relationship.
That's fine, okay. When you first read the script, what did you think about the verse and the rhymes?
Well, I have to say, when I first read it, I was working on another film. I was doing The Notebook at the time in Charleston, South Carolina.
That's fine. Okay. Did Sally ever say, or did you ever ask her how verse serves the script?
Yes, we did. We talked about that quite a bit. And I think there are, again, a couple of things that came.
That's fine. Okay. Going to your past performances, Pat Nixon in the movie Nixon, if you were doing it today, Joan, would you do anything differently?
You know, I'm sure that I would. It's been a long time since I've seen that film. But, you know, as an actor, Joan is a different person today than I was when I made that.
That's fine. Okay. Okay, I think that'll do it. That'll do it.
Great.